This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is the leading source of audiobooks in the world. From bestsellers like Harry Potter to The Martian, or to the Heir to the Empire series by Timothy Zahn, a must-read for any Star Wars fan. And even books by some of the most well-known geeks in the world, like You're Never Weird on the Internet by Felicia Day, or you can listen to Ready Player One read by Will Wheaton, or you can even listen to Tim Ferriss read The 4-Hour Workweek and The 4-Hour Body. With over 180,000 titles to choose from and thousands more on the way, Audible is the go-to source for audiobooks. You can download them on your iPhone, iPad, Android device, and even Windows phones, as well as listen on your laptop. For a 30-day free trial of Audible, which gives you an instant +3 to intelligence, head over to www.audibletrial.com/sidequest and start your free trial today. Again, for a +3 to intelligence, head over to www.audibletrial.com/sidequest. All right, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of SideQuest Podcast. Listen in and level up. If you're not following me on Twitter, check me out at SideQuest FM. Head over to Instagram and follow me as well at SideQuest FM. You can also head over to Facebook and search for SideQuest Fitness and like the Facebook page over there. Get updates on articles, Taco Tuesday for Taco Camp when I release those videos, and all of the shenanigans that I get over to on Facebook. And you should check out Full Disclosure Friday, where I give out an embarrassing fact about myself on Fridays. By the way, if you're brand new to fitness and are looking to start your quest of getting in shape and bettering yourself and becoming the most awesome version of yourself, head over to www.sidequestfitness.com/training-grounds and pick up the Training Grounds, my free 28-day training program that gives you a nutrition protocol that involves absolutely no calories being counted and gives you a 28-day training program along with a boss battle for you to take down at the end of the month. All of this is for free, and you can get that again at sidequestfitness.com/training grounds. Now, if you've been through your own training grounds, or you are advanced and are looking to shred some fat or build some muscle or just look better, feel better, and move better this summer on the beach, then head over to sidequestfitness.com as well. Click on coaching and apply to be a part of my online coaching program. But this is more than just workouts. You're going on a quest. This is fitness for a new generation, a generation of people that are tired of hitting reset on their goals. If you're ready to shred the body fat, to build the muscle, and to look better on the beach this summer, then apply over at sidequestfitness.com. Now, let's get into the episode. I'm chatting with a very, very good friend of mine, Peter Baker, out of Florida. He and I geek out in this episode. We talk a lot about Batman versus Superman, our thoughts on the movie. We talk about death metal. We talk about our backgrounds in theater and the humanities. And Peter and I tell a story about the most embarrassing ways that we both have quit horrible jobs that we had in the past. So check out the episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's get into our episode with Peter Baker. All right, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of SideQuest Podcast. I have a great guest for you today. He is rocking a Batman shirt right now. He's got some pretty badass tattoos on his arms. But he is another member of the Roman Fitness Systems Mastermind, a gentleman I have had the good fortune of meeting in the events that I've been to, as well as get to know him online and read his articles. He's an uber nerd, just like myself. He also loves to train. He's probably a lot smarter than me when it comes to training. He has helped some powerlifters, get through pain and lift heavy again. But he's a really smart dude. He's funny as well. He's looking up like, I don't know what you're talking about. But he knows his comics. He knows his video games. And I love when I get people on who are a little higher on the nerd level than myself. Because I need that sometimes. I need people that are a little nerdier than I to help me realize that I still have a lot of work to do in getting even deeper into my nerdism as well.
You're only like 8 hours away from me via car.
I know. Well, no, I know. I drove down to Daytona like actually last week. I was in Florida, but to see a friend and hang out and just north of Daytona, and I almost wanted to be like, let's go to Tampa, but it was raining, and I'm like, I already drove through the rain to get down here. I don't want to drive.
That's a shitty drive from Daytona to Tampa. Like, it's even long to me, like, to get there.
Dude, you don't realize how large Florida is. Like, I once drove, like, to Miami, which is a bad thing to do if you're not 21. Like, if you're 18 and you're like, man, let's go to Miami for, like, spring break freshman year, bad idea. You can't do anything.
Bro, the driving in Miami, like, you could be the best driver and you still have to worry about somebody killing you because people drive like idiots over there. Like, it's terrible because my girlfriend and I went to, we went to the Keys last year and we had to pass through Miami. That's when you realize how huge Florida is when you're trying to get to the fucking Keys.
Dude, but that was the thing is like, so anyways, let me introduce you guys. This is Peter D. Baker. Or Peter Baker, there's another guy online like named Peter Baker, so you have to use the D.
There is a Washington Post writer. I think he works also for the New York Times. He comes up, if you type in Peter Baker, he comes up in the Google search before I do. There's an attorney in Tampa who has my name as well, and I think I beat him in the search if you type in Peter Baker Tampa, which is good. And then if you go to peterbaker.com, it's like some company in Chicago or something like that. So that's why there's the D in the middle. The D is also my middle initial.
Yeah, the D. I bet it's your middle initial.
It represents my Italian heritage. It's DiGiorgio.
I was just gonna make a dick joke, but whatever. Peter, give him the D, Baker. But no. Florida is like it. So driving from like the middle of North Carolina to Jacksonville wasn't that bad. I was like, oh, all right. So we made it here in like 7 hours. But as soon as like you got to Orlando, I'm like, oh, Miami's not that far. No, it's fucking far. Like just don't like. It doesn't look as massive as Texas or like Alaska or California, but Florida is huge.
Oh man, don't even get me started on that drive to Texas. I know you faced the same shit.
Oh, the same way. Well, you got the back end of that weather, but the wind on that back end was even worse.
Dude, it was scary.
It was all over the road. But yeah, dude, it was crazy to hit the Texas border and then see a sign that said like 780 some miles to El Paso, and I'm just like, holy shit! Texas
and where I hit the border, it was like 800 something miles.
Yeah,
to El Paso.
Yeah, you don't really, I guess you don't really fathom, like, if you put a map of Texas up against, like, European countries, then you kind of go, oh, Texas is that big. But you just see things on a map and you don't realize how large they are.
And regarding size, my county, Hillsborough County, is bigger than Rhode Island. The entire state of Rhode Island.
Most things are bigger than Rhode Island. I mean,
That's true, yeah.
There's also two halves to Rhode Island, so... All right. So Peter, we've been talking Florida and whatnot. For people that don't know you, I know you're growing your presence online and doing some writing. For listeners, give them a little background on who Peter Baker is and sort of how you got into this world of fitness.
Well, I was born in 1986 to like a very humble, poor beginning. I lived in a garage most of my life as a kid. Finally, my father and I moved out into a double-wide trailer after the garage, so I actually had my own room. That was pretty sweet. I go over this in some articles, so I'm not going to get too crazy on that. Yada, yada. I did a lot of bench pressing in 9th grade because I didn't know what the fuck else to do, so that's why...
Who did in 9th grade? Let's be honest. I took a weightlifting class. It was sophomore year, and my squat number was decent at that time, but everybody wanted to bench press.
I didn't even squat because nobody was there to teach me how to squat. But I remember one time I was trying to bench press 135 and I completely crumbled and I had to dump the bar. That one way that the bros always do when they fuck up and they're by themselves. I had to dump it off one side and then dump it off the other side. Everybody laughed at me and I was like, man, that can't happen. So eventually I built up my bench press. Which, now that I think about it, probably led to problems injury-wise later on, just because that's all I did. So that's pretty much it. And, I used to eat like shit all the time. I wrote something recently about my binge eating problem. So at the same time, I was, going to friends' house, and we'd knock back like 2 pizzas and a bunch of chocolate milk and stuff like that. And that's really all I did in high school. And then in college, I started that in 2004. kind of dicked around. Started as a theater major. I know you're a theater major. Yeah, and when they told me I had to take tech classes, I was like, man, fuck this. I'm going to quit.
Oh, you missed out on some good fun, my friend.
I did theater all through high school, and man, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I still did community theater, like, a couple years after the fact, after I quit the major. But so I quit the major in college, and then in 2005, I looked in the mirror and said, God, man, I look like shit. I should probably go to a gym. So I went to a gym in 2005, a local gym in Plant City, which was actually pretty cool because it had all the makings of old school, because it had, like, the iron plates and stuff like that. But they tried to cater to that new school vibe. I hired a trainer, and then, I wasn't really getting stronger in any lift, and I still couldn't really squat. And so I said, yo, bro, why am I not getting stronger in anything? He's like, I don't fucking know. Go talk to this guy. Now, allegedly, and it's probably true based on the way he trained me, this guy, he's a pretty big guy. He looked like a powerlifter. He said he was. Said he trained at Westside Barbell, for a stint, which back then they were kind of known, but now because you got Dave Tate writing for T Nation and all that, everybody knows about Westside Barbell. So he had me doing like some shit like they were doing, where they would have 2 dynamic effort days and 2 max effort days, and so I started doing that, and that's where I learned how to squat. Long story short, that guy eventually got arrested for something involving crystal meth because, fucking Florida. And where I'm from in Florida, Plant City, it's right next to a place called Polk County, which has a huge meth problem. It's really funny. If you go down Highway 92, there's a big billboard that says, is meth a problem in your neighborhood? It's like, well, yeah, you're going to Lakeland. Of course it's a problem in this neighborhood. Also home to Publix.
Hey, nothing wrong with Publix. I do love
Absolutely
me some Publix.
nothing wrong with Publix. But so another guy was there. His name was Jesse, and he recently came out of the Army. He was into the whole strength training thing too, and then we got into Pavel Satsuline, his stuff, his kettlebell stuff, and so we just kept kind of doing the strength thing through that, and I kept up with it. So then in about 2008, I said, you know what, I should start a kettlebell club at University of South Florida. And I did. And, it was just me and a couple bros swinging kettlebells. And eventually we wound up like juggling kettlebells and throwing them at each other and catching them and stuff. All kinds of dangerous type shit, but it was really fun.
Because you're in college, being intelligent just sort of goes out the window in college.
Yeah, and so I started that in 2008, and actually it's pretty funny because I kept it going for a couple of years, even a little bit after I graduated. They eventually got official at USF and did the whole thing where they started getting funding from the activity and service fee from tuition, which goes to things like like the gym and stuff like that, or any club that exists at a school. You have what's called an A&S fee, which goes to fund that. So I was also in student government at the time, and we actually got to do some real shit and say, hey, should we give this club money? Should we not? Make other laws as far as governing the student body. And we also had to make sure it was constitutional based on the Florida State Constitution. So that was some real shit. Pretty fun, too. And all the while, I was like changing majors all the time and stuff like that. Quit theater, quit music, got a degree in religion, which was, kind of cool. Started the Kettlebell Club, kept that going. Now, officially, I've been retconned according to the current guy who runs it, because he absolutely hates me because his ex-girlfriend pretty much fell in love with me. But let it be known, I started that goddamn club, and it's still going on, even though they allow shitty squat form out there now and all that good stuff. Started teaching music back in 2008 at a music store. To me, the exercise and the music is pretty much one and the same, because one's just a gross movement pattern, the other's a fine movement pattern, and you still take those teaching principles and you teach them. And I did that for about 4 years, and at about 2011 I applied for a job at a call center for Coca-Cola, which was exceptionally awful as far as jobs go. But the same day I had to go to my grandma's funeral, I had the interview, right? So I went to the interview with my shirt and tie on, and it was a great interview, actually. And yeah, I had a good time. Cracked a lot of jokes with the interviewer, so I knew I was going to be a good fit there. And then as I'm going to the funeral later, they called me up and they're like, "Oh, hey, you got the job." I'm like, "Okay, that's great. It's time to go to a funeral." Started training there, and man, Learned a lot about selling there, which was useful. Learned a lot about providing value and overcoming objections for sales and stuff like that. But, the job was overall shitty. You had to call customers, and these customers knew I was calling them. It's not like I'm calling some random guy, hey, bro, you need a Coca-Cola account. Let me hook you up. It's like I'm calling you because you own a Subway, and, Subway serves Coke products. And I'm like, hey, it's time for your weekly order. What can we get you? And everybody would still get mad just because, we're calling at like the worst times because we're on an automated dialer. So it's like, oh, man, got to deal with these people. And every Subway employee, by the way, sounds like they're suicidal. If you ever go in there to see if you could make note of that. They're obviously not getting paid enough now and all that good shit. So I did that for a little bit. And then my girlfriend and I entertained this notion of opening a gym, and I was like, because I really like the fitness thing. I should probably do that. We haven't opened the gym yet. I don't even know if we are going to now, just because of the online thing and all that. So we were talking about that, and I was like, I should probably get my shit together and quit. So time rolled on. I started a shitty blog called deathmetalanddeadlifting.com, and I got into the writing thing a little bit, and come about 2014, which was a little over 2 years ago. Started really hating the job. Started calling out just for the fuck of it, using those sick days. You remember that scene in Mean Girls when the person calls and says,
I love you because
sick.
you're making a Mean Girls reference. You just gained 200 cool points.
It's a great movie, and she calls up and says, oh, I'm sick. So literally every time I called in sick, I would do that for the hell of it. And it was at the point where I was at my last fuck up before I got fired, right? Because every time you did that, you used a sick day without planning it. It counted against you. So one day I'm leaving to go to lunch. I was so excited. I was going to go to Starbucks and get like some mocha latte bullshit or whatever. And I forgot to clock out, which, because they were not advanced enough to where they would have their computer system connected with your time. So I forgot to clock out for lunch, right? But I didn't know it at the time. So I'm coming back, and I'm like frantically searching for my stupid fucking ID badge. And I call up my boss, wisecracking New Jersey guy. And I said, Steve, do you see my badge on my desk? Hold on a minute, Peter, let me check. And he goes and he checks. And he's like, no, I don't see your badge. And I said, well, hey, see if I clocked out. Because I figured if I didn't clock out, then the badge must be in the building. He's like, nope, you didn't clock out. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know where my badge is. Eventually, I found it. It was underneath the shit that I purchased at Starbucks. I had a little bag with me, and there was my badge. And I said, oh, God damn. And I said, Steve, this is the last thing. Like, I'm going to get fired for this. Well, don't jump the gun yet, Peter. Let me check. I keep track of this shit, so I know I'm going to get fired. So I took a month paid vacation that I had accrued, came back, got fired, and started training people. Rented out some studio space and started training people.
That's a great story. I like that you took the month vacation and then just came back and got fired. I actually quit a cupcake place in New York. I didn't pull a Mean Girls and start calling out being like, I'm sick. I actually half-baked quit this job.
Fuck you, you're cool, fuck you, I'm out.
I did not do the fuck yous because for some reason, like somewhere deep in me, the like good side of me came out, and there was like a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old in there eating cupcakes with their parents. So, but instead I go in and like I had gone in to get my paycheck and I went down to grab a burrito at this place and a beer and then came back and she was like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I got good news. I got a job. I'm out. And I just turn around like and leave. And as I'm leaving, I hear like the girl going, you could have at least given me notice. I walk out the door, turn around, do the double bird flip from Half Baked. Here's the funny story. I wanted to be cool. It was going to like totally exit stage left. And when I exit, there was some scaffolding sitting right there. And I face plant right into the scaffolding and like bounce back into the window. And I'm just like, what's up? Give her a head nod and walk off.
Man, that's a pretty good one too. But yeah, so I kind of got thrown into having to do my own thing. And God, that shit's frightening.
What did you learn from, there's a lot of people in the world that, we're both entrepreneurs in the online fitness industry. and have probably had entrepreneurial tendencies throughout our life at some point, and leaving a job, my dad always was like, well, don't leave a job until you have another job. And you didn't really, but what did you sort of learn from that experience?
Yeah, you have to, it got to a point where, I was consistently trying to build, like a clientele. And thankfully, one of my best clients who is still here with me to this day, a guy that I worked with at Coca-Cola, his name is Jim. He's actually on my page somewhere. He was like 500 pounds at his worst.
Yeah.
Serendipitously, he texted me not too long after that, and he's like, hey, I'm ready to start this thing. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, a little bit of referrals and all that good stuff. So, yeah, you really have to put yourself out there, and you're going to, and I had to, for a little bit, I stopped talking to my parents. Because, they're good intentions, but they're going to tell you you're going to fail and that you
shouldn't do it, that they worry about. Yeah, I know. My dad's first question was, this on fitness thing, can you make money doing that? And I'm like, well, yeah, Dad, I can make money doing it, but that, I want to help people, I want to give back to people. I want to help people, do what I've done. Of course I can make money at it, but that's just a byproduct of helping people.
That Goodwill bank account.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so yeah, I told my dad about that, and, he got it. My mom never really got me, but then again, she didn't grow up with me because my dad was a single father because they were divorced when I was 2 years old. So it literally was just me and him living in the garage from about when I was 4 all the way till about 2002 or 3 or whenever we decided to move out.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, I stopped talking to them, and even some of your friends are like, bro, what the fuck's wrong with you? A little bit. People you thought were your friends and shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough when you have something that you really want to do, and there are people that support you, but there's a lot of people that will ask questions, thinking you're crazy and doing it, but you don't do it for others, you do it for yourself, and I think that's anything you're doing in life, it should be for yourself. All right, so let's talk about some death metal, because you have written about that on Roman Fitness Systems, how it helped you, what it taught you in starting a business. But you write about death metal a lot. So what did death metal teach you about starting a business?
Man, it made me say, God damn, if I'd have done this shit when I was in the band, it probably would have been a lot better. Tampa's supposedly the death metal capital of the world, but the scene has pretty much gone to shit here. I mean, even though there's a little bit of good talent, there's a lot of shitty bands, and I'm pretty sure that'll always be the case, but mismanagement of venues tends to hurt the scene overall, and stuff like that. And ironically, in meth-ridden Lakeland, the scene was actually a lot better, but kids would find ways to have shows that people would go to. Obviously, with the problem there is you couldn't get paid to do that. You would just be getting a lot of exposure, and that was it. But you could never get these little fuckers to come out to Tampa because they couldn't drive. But it was cool because, they got super into it. But, man, a lot of the guys locally in metal, they get really sensitive, which there's nothing wrong with sensitivity, but they get sensitive, I think, in the wrong ways to where they can't handle criticism, constructive or not, because, you start doing your own thing, you get criticism of all types. There's the type of criticism that a John Romanello would give us that's constructive. The first time he called me, he's like, oh man, your writing fucking sucks. You need to do this and that. And I'm like, almost cried. And then, then there's that negative criticism. So they can't handle either one. And then coupled with the fact that, some of the most artistic people, maybe they're not the most personable people, or maybe they don't have the social skills, which is fine, because, they're doing the art thing. But if you can learn that, which you can train yourself for that, you would go a lot farther. And I think I talked about that in the article I wrote for RFS. You have to put yourself out there. But you also have to make yourself scarce, because, the thing we were doing was, we just wanted to play. So we would play as often as possible within a 2-mile radius, because, there were several clubs we could play at. So, we weren't making ourselves scarce. the preferable option would have been to play 1 week in Tampa and then maybe go to like fucking Gainesville or some shit and play there, or fucking even go to Georgia and play there the next week and not play Tampa again for like another 3 to 4 months, just so it would force people to buy tickets who want to see us. And then, you know, locally, I mean, you can't afford your own sound guy, so you have to do all this shit yourself. You have to set up, you have to lug all the shit yourself, and you have to create the music, and you have to practice and pay money for a practice space, which thankfully it was easy to find. We actually practiced in a mini storage with a shitload of other death metal bands, and they actually catered to metal bands because they got a lot of good business there, and it was not, it wasn't near any residences.
Yeah.
And then there's the marketing, like, shit. Back then, I knew what email marketing was, but I didn't know it as that because, I was like subscribed to Zach Evanesh and Elliot Hulse's email list. It never dawned on me to say, hey, maybe I should do this for music. But I wish I would have.
Do you still play, like, now that you're coaching and training clients online and in a studio? Like, are you still playing at all?
Not really, not professionally at least. I still dick around. I got a guitar in the in the bedroom that I mess around with sometimes. But man, it's hard to find the desire to want to go through all that again. Because starting from the ground up, business wise of any type, man, it's fucking hard.
It is. It's not easy. I mean, I haven't picked up the guitar in a while. I basically just play chords because I'm lazy. I should have learned my scales, but I never focused on that. All right. So speaking of metal, I know you've played guitar. Who's your greatest metal guitarist of all time?
Man, I really like Prince. I know he's not metal, but he's my favorite musician.
What? I mean, dude, I agree with you, hands. I mean, the fact that the dude gets off a plane, he's like, I have an album in my head, and then just like goes and records all of Purple Rain and blows everyone's fucking mind. Like, that's an amazing musician. But why pick him over others?
Man, he's underrated as a guitar player, but man, that son of a bitch can shred. If you go to YouTube and you look up "While My Guitar Gently Weeps" Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's Tom Petty, George Harrison's son, a few other people there, because Tom Petty used to play with George Harrison back in the day, traveling Wilburys. And at the end of the song, when there's like this ripping solo, it cuts over and there's Prince fucking jamming. And man, he shreds it up. And plus, I've seen him live, and he puts on a damn good show.
Oh, dude, he's one of the best entertainers that there is. I really loved his halftime show that he did.
I remember that,
like almost 10 years ago, and it was a really great show. I thought it was even more hysterical when he shows up for like the press meeting, and he's like, "Okay, we'll take some questions now. 1, 2, 3." And they just start playing. They just start rehearsing in the middle, and the press is like, "What are we supposed to do?" You're supposed to sit there and watch Prince be awesome.
Yeah, basically. And he also plays 26 instruments, and he's very prolific, and he changes with the times, and he still does what he feels is right musically.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk some nerd stuff because you're wearing the Batman shirt. I just saw it yesterday. When this episode goes up, it will probably have been a month since the movie premiered, but let's talk about it. Batman versus Superman. What are your thoughts?
Man, I loved it.
What did you love about it?
I really enjoyed Wonder Woman. That was a pleasant surprise. She was really good, and the music when she came out, when they started fighting Doomsday at the end, I thought that was epic as shit. I typically tend to like what Hans Zimmer does in almost everything he's ever done. Some parts of the music seemed a little bit melodramatic, like when Bruce Wayne's looking through the files. Like that was a bit much, but it was still pretty good. I liked the intricacies of the plot. It had a few moving parts that you really have to pay attention to. A lot of people complained about Lex Luthor being young and crazy, but I think that's just it. He's young. It's almost implied that he just got the company, like his dad just died and he got the company. I think the fact that they shaved him bald at the end is like, all right, now he's going to become that Lex Luthor and love, that corporate villain when he gets out. So, I thought that was really good, and I fucking enjoyed the shit out of Ben Affleck.
Oh, Batfleck was awesome. Yeah. I thought it was fantastic. It was good to see a little more brutal Batman, whereas Bale played the way. I mean, I enjoy the iterations of Batman that you've had over the years, but I really did enjoy the more brawler kind of brute forced Batman that Affleck was playing. Because you kind of have to have that against Superman. You gotta kind of have a guy who's a little bit on the crazy side to go up against essentially a god. I did enjoy some of the thematic moments and the motifs with Superman. The one when he went to Mexico in the Day of the Dead, that one was
that was cool.
Yeah.
And you have to remember this too about Superman in this particular universe. He's still not old.
No.
Like, he's only been Supermaning for like 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It was good. I mean, of course, I'm not a fan of Jesse Eisenberg. I think communion wafers have more flavor than Jesse Eisenberg. He's awful on screen. He has no depth as an actor. It's the same thing.
I just realized that he is like the Michael Cera clone who was in Zombie.
No. You know what I call him? Actually, I don't call him Jesse Eisenberg. I call him Michael Sorta. Because he's sort of like Michael Cera, but not as awesome.
Juno was an awesome movie, though.
Yeah.
Michael Cera.
Anything Michael Cera does is awesome because I was Michael Cera growing up. So I'm going to love Michael Cera. Jesse Eisenberg sucks. And Zombieland was only good because of Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray.
Fucking man in
Dude,
general.
Woody Harrelson could read like Woody Harrelson could read like the nutrition facts on a gallon of milk, and I would be like, that's a good movie. That's like, you could just film him reading random things and be like, I like this movie. Woody Harrelson's good. I don't care. Like, he could read a grocery shopping list and it would be awesome. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Eisenberg. My biggest worry with the film was that we all remember what happened with Batman and Robin. Beyond the bat nipples, you had too many heroes in a movie that you were trying to introduce, too many villains, and I had that worry that they were gonna, because I knew Aquaman was gonna be in it. I knew they were setting it up for the dawn, of the Justice League, and I was like, if they put too many in, I don't trust Snyder as the director because I can never get the time back for watching Sucker Punch. And I know you weren't a fan of Watchmen either.
No, but to be fair, I probably need to revisit it because it has been about 7 years since I've seen it.
What was your deal with Watchmen? Because I actually thought
the ending fucked the whole story up.
Yeah, I agree, but I also understood why they sort of had to. I mean, I got it. I didn't mind. Like, it bugged me, but it was one of those things where, like, man, I could sort of let it go. But I don't know. Snyder has worried me a few times, but I did enjoy it. It was better than what I thought it was going to be. But I gave it a soft 7 out of 10.
They could give it about a 7.75.
All right.
Could have been shorter.
Yeah, it was. But it didn't feel 2.5 hours. Like, even as I was leaving, I was like, it didn't feel 2.5 hours.
It didn't, but it was still slow. But that's okay because my favorite movies, Apocalypse Now and Blade Runner, they're both slow as shit.
Yeah, that's true. So you have a degree in humanities. You went to school. As you talk about in one article, and we mentioned this, you started in theater, and then you were like, man, fuck sets and lights, which are awesome. Just to defend that, I do enjoy some good lighting design.
I do too, because they make me look good when I was on the stage.
Touche. But you left that, and then you went into religious studies, and you wrote an article, sort of about, was it worth going to school for that? Was it worth it? Is it a waste of time to get a sort of humanities degree or an arts degree? And I thought about that myself. But I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think theater teaches you a lot about human interaction. You get to sort of understand why people think the way they do, and sort of dissecting the character, which can help you as a writer later on. If you're writing, you usually have to write scenes, so you have to understand how people speak, how they talk.
Dude, and the improv classes were fantastic because I mean, we're basically improving now because I'm not planning what I'm saying. Yeah, no, but improv allows you to. Improv is not the biggest thing people think about improv is they think that, I'm just going to hear something and deliver a funny line.
Not really. Like some of the best improv people that you know, the two rules of improv are basically like yes and. So you accept someone, you listen, you accept it, yes and you let them sort of continue. And I think that is important for all types of communication, especially as a fitness coach. Like you've got to listen to your clients, and you know you're not trying to jump in and get your line. There was a great acting teacher who I read called his name was Harold Gushkin, and he taught like Meryl Streep, Kevin Kline, and others. But he taught like cold reading and how like, and you've probably experienced this, Peter, when even like community theater auditions, people will go in and they're like reading. They're like, okay, I'm going to read. I'm going to read. I'm going to read. I'm waiting for my line. I'm waiting for my line. And then she said, and then they pop their head up for their line, but they're not listening to the other person. So you never get a true emotional human interaction. So his philosophy was listen to the person who's speaking the line to you, take it in, take a moment, go down, look at your line, memorize it really quickly, and then deliver the first response that you have. And it gives you a more truthful reaction, which is what improv sort of is. Like right now, you're listening to me ramble, and then I'm going to let you speak, and I'm going to listen to you. But I think that's important to communication. So how do you think theater or improv helped you as a coach in your communication skills?
Man, that's a long way back to think. Took an improv class. God.
Do you think it made you a better listener? Did it...
I definitely do think it. Well, because especially improv or not, when you're on a stage, you have to listen for everybody because somebody might forget something.
Right.
And I've had to fill in a lot of lines that should have been delivered by somebody else.
Which is terrifying when it happens. Like it's hard to explain. Like you've missed the line, and you could watch a show and be like, okay, all right, hey, it was a great show, and then someone's like, yeah, I missed my line, and it's like 2 seconds, but in your mind it feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had that happen on stage before. Someone else has to deliver a line because someone misses it or skips it or.
What plays were you in?
In college, I was in Psycho Beach Party, which was fun because I had to wear a Speedo on stage.
Nice.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I was in that. I was a guard in Trojan Women, and I'm not a fan of like classical Greek theater. Like it's just. It's so it's worse than a soap opera. Like they're so over dramatic and heavy and just like I don't want to do them. But I was in that, and then I did a show called Death and the Plowman. It was actually written as a medieval disputation, and then a sort of avant-garde theater practitioner in New York took it and adapted it. And then we took that and adapted it. But it's basically an argument between a farmer and Death about why Death would take his wife and why he thinks Death is wrong. And he sort of comes to peace at that at the end. But yeah, it was good. And then I took some time off and didn't do anything my senior year.
Nice.
But I did do a show in New York. So like, at least I can say I've done an off Broadway show.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, but what? All right. So, why religious studies? Why did you go back to that?
Well, in Plant City, there are a lot of fundamentalist Christians there, and I went to school with a lot of them. I'm like, man, these people are fucking crazy. So I saw on the roster for that particular summer was Intro to the New Testament. I said, great, I'll be able to go back home because I still lived in Plant City at the time. I said, great, I'll be able to go back home and argue with these morons and kick the living shit out of them because I'll know their Bible probably better than they will. And so we went in and, we studied the New Testament, and it was pretty good. I said, man, this is a really good class. I really enjoyed it. We learned a historical context, the reasoning and the background behind the Gospels and how and why they were written potentially, Book of Acts and all the letters of Paul to the churches in Corinth and wherever else he wrote to and stuff like that. I said, hey, this is pretty, historically speaking, this is pretty awesome. So then I took a class called Life After Death. We watched Groundhog Day. We watched this really fucked up movie with Mulder, David Duchovny. called The Rapture.
Not seen it.
I really don't want to spoil it because it's so fucked up you have to watch it.
Okay.
It came out in like 1990, but it's super intense. We watched that one, and all these go over like different beliefs in different religious traditions. Like Groundhog Day's got the Wheel of Samsara from Buddhism.
Yeah.
So when Bill Murray finally let go of his ego, he was able to escape all that. So we watched a lot of movies in that and talked about it. So it was kind of cool. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go talk to the guy who runs the show, Del Deshant, who wrote a book called The Sacred Santa, Religious Dimensions of a Consumer Culture. Fantastic book. You should get it on the Amazon. And, he has like, I go in, he's got like this Jesus action figure, chocolate crosses, Hanukkah gelt, all kinds of shit. And I'm like, man, this guy's pretty cool. He also kept records for the past 10 years at the time. So now 20 years of records of every single racquetball game he played within that department. So basically I was sold. And that's also how I got into racquetball because of that guy. So yeah, he kept the record and the wins and losses and the scores of all the doubles matches, which is really intense because he had like this big stack of paper that had all that shit on it. Dedication right there. But he sold me on it. He was probably one of my favorite teachers, probably one of the best I've had too. And so I was like, fuck it. I don't got anything else that I seem interested in. I'll declare this as a major. So I did. Studied a lot of Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam during my time there.
So what would you tell someone if they came to you or you had a client who was like, I think I want to be a humanities major? Would you tell them to do it? Is it a viable option that you think provides value to someone? Or is it stuff where like, you're like, listen, I can give you 12 books to get on Amazon and save you $40,000?
Oh man, you could do that. You could do that. There's a lot of good books on the Amazon that you could. But I don't know. When I was in college, I discovered weeknight drinking was a thing.
What weeknight drinking?
Yeah, like I discovered that you can fucking go to school and not have to go to school on Fridays if you plan your schedule right. If you're really good, you can go to school and go to school just on Tuesdays and Thursdays if you plan it right. That shit's kind of cool.
Oh, it's so ridiculous that you literally can have no classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you can have like a 4-day weekend. Like it's. Yeah.
That's a tough one to make happen, but it can be done.
It can be done, but it is a tough one because you're going to have, if you can do it, I mean, you're in class all day.
Yeah. That's usually how it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, you got that. You get a lot of good, like-minded people there. So that was kind of cool. Of course, I banged tons of chicks too, which is always a fantastic thing. It's a fun place. You get a lot of good socializing there, and it helps you actually connect with people and talk to people in a way that you can't really do in high school.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's the first time you really experience leaving behind what you know.
Yeah.
And depending on what you do after college, you might have to go through that shit again, depending on what your route is. But, it's fun while it lasted.
College. So many memories. It's like the one thing college was where I sort of like came out and discovered my own self and had fun and got to do a lot of things. And because I was I was a very religious kid in high school, so I didn't do a lot of things, because I didn't want to go to hell.
Yeah, so no weeknight drinking.
Yeah, no drinking really at all. That was only a couple of times. But yeah, weeknight drinking totally happened. St. Patrick's Day with no classes, drank and played Knights of the Old Republic 2 all day. Epic.
I remember that game.
It was awesome. College was good. But I know you just mentioned before we got on that you hit the big 3-0 this year. Mine's coming up shortly. How has your training or how's your body changed as you've gotten older?
Right now, I think I'm the best that I've ever looked. I got really lean a couple years ago when I was into powerlifting. I was like wearing what I'm wearing now, jeans and a shirt and shoes. I was 174. That's when I hit like a 520-pound deadlifting competition, which, that's like I downplay it just because I was deadlifting with people like Lane Norton at the gym and other people who were fucking hitting 600 pounds while training, and I'm like, God damn, that's fucking awesome. But at 174, hitting 520, and I would
It's
have gotten.
huge.
Say what?
That's huge.
Yeah, so I downplayed. I'm like, man, I'm not that strong, but I guess it is. And then I would have gotten 460 at the last meet I did, but I missed the cue. So you get a cue, right? They say squat, and then you squat.
Yeah.
You stand up, and then you have to wait for them to say rack before you rack it. So when I stood up, I started walking forward before they said rack, so it didn't count. So I only got a 430-pound squat counted in the meet. But there's a YouTube video of me wearing really short shorts squatting 450, so that's kind of cool too. But yeah, so like that, I did that a lot back then. And eventually in 2012, or fuck, I forget when it was. It was like at the beginning of one of those years, I got a herniated disc, and that sucked. So that really changed everything. But I managed to fix it all by myself. A little help from a couple massage therapists that I trust. And so now it's all about learning skills. I'm able to get back into the barbell lifting now a little bit more than I was because it's starting to do well for me again. Are you familiar with what Delanave and I do, the biofeedback thing?
Yeah, I've done a little biofeedback. It's basically a Jedi mind trick for your body. That's kind of how I view it.
Call and response.
Yeah. So he went over it last year at the fitness summit in Kansas City and just did a toe touch and then sort of like did 5 quick bodyweight squats and then you do a toe touch again, which is sort of how he introduced it. But it's really interesting concept that, figuring out what your body wants to lift for that day, how it can lift without just forcing yourself to be like, nope, I'm going to do a conventional deadlift today, even though I feel like shit, when maybe your body's saying, well, I can do sumo.
Yeah. And then eventually as you keep lifting, right, those things will stop testing well. You won't get shitty at them necessarily, but the better you get at something, the less often it will test well because, you don't need to do it as much.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how often who's one of those emo bands you like? Brand
new. Yeah.
I wonder how often they practice guitar.
I mean, I would think probably somewhat every day they do something.
They probably do something, but it's also their job, and they're probably also playing old shit, but they also have to come up with new shit.
Yeah.
Which, stimulates their brain neurologically in other ways. But they're not sitting there maybe as a warm-up, but that's it before they go on stage. But they're not sitting there for 3 hours practicing fucking Segovia scales or whatever the fuck is popular now because, they have songs they can practice that have these things in there. So it kind of becomes the same thing. So, that's when I started learning how to do back levers. And then if you look at my training logs, there's all kinds of obscure shit that I don't even film just because if somebody tried it, they probably would hurt themselves or would not see the value in it just because it's special to me and helps me, but maybe not everybody else. So that's really the crux of it, is to move what doesn't move. So psychologically speaking, moving out of Coca-Cola and starting this psychologically was fantastic. I felt the best I ever felt because, I was moving what didn't move. Now, in accordance with what we've been learning, writing and exploring all these topics, moving more shit that didn't move before makes me feel even better. And getting out and doing stuff like this podcast, which I've never done before either, more psychological movement, moving what's not moving.
Do you think biofeedback has helped you do that more easily? Like, because you have a general sense of what biofeedback is? And for anyone who's wondering what it is, I'll link to Dave Delanave's website so you can read about it. It's really something you kind of have to read and watch him go through. It's really hard to sort of it's hard for me to explain. Maybe you can explain it.
It's all based on your nervous system. It's pretty simple, and your psychology and your physiology. We don't really know. The guy who taught Dave and I've even asked him. He says we don't know if it's your psychology influencing your physiology or your physiology influencing your psychology, but I think it's probably both. So things that you like when you first start doing it will test well more often than things you don't like. And then the variations come in, and then, that's why you test the tool, test the weights, and then all kinds of other shit. And there's actually a pyramid that we work down to figure it out. And to solve pain problems, we flip the pyramid upside down. So the pyramid in training, right? So to take it back to powerlifting, specific training would be squat, bench, and deadlift with your cues, right? Because they cue you for the movement. With the same shit that you're going to wear, you know, your goddamn Inzer wrist wraps or whatever the fuck that people are into on Instagram now. You train with that. You train relatively heavy singles if you can. So that's specific training. If you can't do that, if none of that shit tests well, maybe you go to a component of that, right? So if you take a deadlift, you have triple extension. Yeah. Right? Of your ankle, knee, and hip. Is there, a component of that, right? Can you do hip extension? Maybe it's dumbbell or barbell hip thrust that day instead of deadlift. That might be what you train, and that might be better for you that day. Or shit, it could be even heavy calf raises. Who knows? If none of that shit goes well, right? If none of that shit tests well, you got the contra-specific stuff, right? So in a deadlift, you got the triple extension. Maybe contra-specifically speaking, you train the oppositional movements. On a big scale, maybe that's doing a hanging leg raise, right? With a dumbbell in between your feet. Literally, you're putting force in the exact opposite way that you are doing on a deadlift, right? So maybe you do that day. You could break it down even further, but that's the general gist of it. And then you get the non-specific stuff. Maybe you should go swimming that day or some shit. Maybe ride a bike.
So it's just varying up your training based on how your body feels, as opposed to trying to force yourself to do something when, your hips are maybe a little tight, maybe you're a little sore.
Yeah. And so when the pain comes in, moving what's not moving, you flip that pyramid upside down. You start with whatever you can do that's not specific to the pain issue, right? So, if it hurts to flex your shoulder, you start completely somewhere else. Maybe you should do some body weight squats or something like that, or some body weight hip thrust or anything else that's not fucking around with your shoulder, right? And then eventually you work up that inverted pyramid to the contra-specific, right? So maybe you can't flex your shoulder. Maybe you can extend it in one way. Maybe, like doing a dumbbell row or something like that. And then when you get to the component of it, maybe you can't bring your hand over your head like this, but maybe you can do a little bit of shoulder flexion. It's eventually, once you can do the thing that you couldn't do, that's how you know you're good.
Is that so? I know you worked with Lane Norton on getting prepped for a powerlifting meet after he had injured himself. Are these sort of the same techniques you used with him to get him back into shape? And for those who don't know who Lane is, you can find him on Twitter at BioLane, but he's probably one of the biggest guys in the fitness industry, especially powerlifting and bodybuilding. And Peter helped nurse him back to health after some issues.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different for somebody who doesn't do the test and who was on a time crunch. So, you have to get to the root of the problem really quick, and at least find a way that he can do the thing he needs to do. So, for a power lifter, the focus is on what, they're not moving for a given lift. So every time there's a powerlifting bench press happening, it's retract your scapula, depress your scapula, so you get this thing going. It's like, that's it. Yeah. Not a lot of movement going on there, right? So for deadlifting, there's no lumbar movement, or at least there shouldn't be, because then you might fuck your shit up. So, you'd eventually have to move those things so you can stay healthy, right? You keep on doing one thing in one direction. You specialize too much of it, you can hurt yourself, and that's typically what happens. And Lane is a guy who will work insanely hard at all those goddamn lifts every time you see him. I've had the pleasure of seeing him train in person many times, and it's very intense.
I've seen him train online. He did a Periscope one day, and I mean, he's an intense guy. But I think that's important to know that you have to vary things up a lot, because I get very stuck on, if I could deadlift every day, I would. And for a while I had to switch from conventional to sumo, and then went back because of some hip issues and other things.
And then you can ask yourself, what types of ways can I deadlift? Because there are so many ways you can pick up a thing from the ground.
Yeah.
And my coach and one of the guys who helped Dave as well, Adam T. Glass, he was a grip athlete, world record holding, actually, insanely strong. He's very good at the biofeedback training stuff. He's got a lot of interesting ways to pick shit up off the ground. Pinch grip, hub lifting, which is basically you grab the middle of one of those old school iron plates and you lift that son of a bitch up. It's crazy. Blob lifting, which is the head of a York dumbbell. So there's all kinds of ways you can pick something up.
I've seen some of those. I've used some with a client who's a rock climber and wanted to improve his grip. Even though I asked him, I was like, dude, you realize that like you sent me pictures of like the climbing stuff you do. Like there's not much a dumbbell is gonna do like with your grip. Because
have him take a thin plate and pinch it like a 20 plate curls.
Yeah, I had him doing that and some towel pull-ups.
And that goes, and most people don't think about their hands, but that goes to the same line of thought. Like, you should pull as much as you press, if not more so. You should fucking load your thumb more than as much as you load these sons of bitches.
Yeah.
So every time you get that monkey grip or that, grip on the barbell, it's always this.
Yeah.
So the pinch gripping, that little guy right there.
Yeah.
It's all the difference.
Well, and it's interesting. I saw this somewhere. Maybe you can back me up, but I remember reading this, that 10% of your strength is found in your grip. So if you have really weak grip strength, that's probably why you can't lift the weight that you want to lift, because you don't have the grip strength.
I mean, yeah, that happens sometimes. You hear people talking about how grip finally became an issue, but their body can support, 750 pounds.
Yeah.
And then they do it with straps and then they're good.
Yeah. All right. So a couple fun questions, because we're nearing the 50-minute mark, a little over the 50-minute mark. Fun questions I ask everyone. If you could go anywhere in a time machine, where would you go?
Oh, God. Where would I go? I'd probably stop Malcolm X's assassination.
Okay. All right. If you could be any animal on a carousel, what animal would you be and why?
I don't even know what the fuck animals are on a carousel.
Fine. If you could be any animal, like at all, that you could be on a carousel, what animal? Fantasy animal as well.
I'd probably be this guy.
That guy? Oh, look at that face. Oh, he's like, fuck y'all, I don't care. I'm laying here on this leather couch and it is comfortable. All right, you're in the finals for the International Air Guitar Championships. What song do you play to take home the crown?
I'd probably walk off stage if I ever found myself there. They actually exist, though.
They do exist. Just play along with me, Peter.
I don't know. Fucking Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Okay. All right. What's the most money you've ever drunkenly spent at a fast food restaurant?
I think when I was like 13 or 14, I got high with some friends on the reefer. And I think I bought like 15. Actually, drunkenly spent. I bought like 15 tacos from Taco Bell, but that's dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Recently, while sober, I just really wanted, a lot of beef and stuff, and I still made it fit my macros. I went to Evo. So do you have those up there?
No.
Healthy-ish fast food. They have like, free-range steak burgers and shit.
Yeah, we don't have them up here.
Pretty good. I got an original steak burger with an extra patty on it, and 2 orders of fries. One sweet potato, 1 regular French fry. And I spent $18 on that. No, wait, I had 2 extra patties on that burger.
That's an expensive burger, but I mean, I've almost done that at Chipotle in like New York, because they're like $12 a burrito.
Dude, it's easy to spend that much money at Chipotle, but
well, when you get triple steak,
yeah,
it is.
It's hard to wrap that son of a bitch too.
Yeah, which I'm basically like, I don't even know why. Just put it in a bowl. All right, if you could write a note to your younger self, what would you say in only 2 words? This is my favorite question to ask.
Good one. Just 2 words?
Just 2 words. People, it's so easy to come up with 3, because I had like 4 or 5 different 3-letter ones, but you can only use 2 words. What would you say in that note to your younger self?
God damn it. This is a tough one.
Think about it and come back to it. I've got some more geek questions I want to finish up the last few minutes with, because we've talked about training, we've talked about biofeedback, how you got into fitness, and whatnot. But you and I are both uber nerds, and we got to talk about it because you've written about this. You've put a ton of stuff out there. I love the expanded universe, and there's a lot of things. There was a great article and you wrote it a long time ago about the Star Wars teaser and like going into the EU and defending things where like in the expanded universe, like these things happened and people are getting upset because they just don't know the stuff. Do you think fans should make films of the extended universe since Disney has declared them non-canon?
Man, that's a really in-depth question. I think that people who, and this is why I like avoid most forums. Like I don't even go on Reddit. I never really did because it's the people who bitch about things like that, and even the people who don't. Who, if anybody has a complaint about anything as far as mass media goes, I think they should make it themselves. I think they should do something themselves. I think that there's some brilliant fan fiction is out there, and if they could change the story around to avoid getting the shit suit out of them, they should make these stories and try to fucking sell them as screenplays or whatever. We could probably see a lot of good talent. I think they should do their own startup companies too to make these happen in whatever way they can. I mean, shit, a kid got money for a potato salad on GoFundMe or whatever. I think if the people do it right, they can put a GoFundMe up for, funding for some good fiction.
I agree. I think it'd be fantastic to see some of those things. So speaking of that, what expanded universe character do you hope maybe makes it on screen someday?
Prince Caesar.
Yes, I like it. Some shadows, baby. Now, see, for me, that speaks to my heart because that means when it happens.
But we were at a good age when that came out.
Oh, it's one of the best like Nintendo 64 games ever.
Yeah, and
fantastic. And the comics
we were right there whenever the special edition was re-released. In '97. So we got to see all that cool shit.
Dude, I went into a Goodwill the other day, and they had the VHS, the non-special edition, the one that came out in like '95.
Wow.
Like on VHS that someone had given the Goodwill, and they were selling it.
Did you buy it?
No, because I already have them at home, and I was like, whoever is selling these, whoever got rid of this, you don't deserve to live. You don't do that.
Didn't they have those at On It as well when we were there?
They may have. I think they did.
There was a lot of shit there.
Yeah,
like some of it was really cool.
But yeah, I would love for Dash because he had red hair, and I'd be like, all right, that's it. I'm auditioning. I'm gonna be Dash Rendar and get to be like.
Of course, Mara Jade as well, but I think that's a given.
Christina Hendricks. I just want Christina Hendricks as Mara Jade. Want Christina Hendricks as Mara Jade. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to make Luke married, or maybe they will. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll find out in a little over a year and a half.
In a little over a year and a half, we will. Awesome. So all right. So you deal with the last training question. You deal with a lot of people who and getting them over pain. And over injury. What's one thing people can do in their training to move better with less pain?
Just find a different way to do your pet lifts. Like, don't just sit there and barbell squat all the goddamn time.
So like front squats, wide squats, split squats?
Whatever tests well. But yeah, unilateral work's always good to throw in there. Take a couple kettlebells and do front squats with those.
Yeah.
The big thing too is asymmetrical training. That's one of the things that I know Dave advocates, and I do too, because it works.
What is asymmetrical training, real quick?
Well, you could stagger your stance.
So instead of having your feet at the same spot, sort of have the left in front of the right, and you still so it's like a mini split squat? No?
I wouldn't think of it like that. But take a couple hops up and down and then note where your feet land and try squatting like that or deadlifting like that.
Okay. I like that. I mean, that's the jump position is where I sort of make my stance for deadlifts.
Another thing that helped me out too in light of the herniated disc, maybe I'll take a 53-pound kettlebell on my right hand and then like a lighter one on my left side and do front squats like that. Feels way better than having the two weights being the exact same. So you can do shit like that, one-handed deadlifts, all kinds of shit.
Oh, one-handed deadlifts. Woo! That That's a good time. That is a good time. All right, so Peter, I've had a good time chatting with you. If people want to know more about you, where can they find you online?
PeterDBaker.com.
PeterDBaker.com. No Twitter, no Snapchat, no...
Twitter is Peter D. Baker. Snapchat, also Peter D. Baker. Instagram as well. Facebook.com/Peter the Baker. Peter D. Baker was taken.
Peter the Baker. I like the Peter the Baker.
And I guess for the 2 words, I'd have to say ball hard.
Ball hard. Why ball hard?
I don't fucking know. I guess that's like a metaphor for like, don't be scared.
Don't be scared?
Yeah.
Never scared?
Yeah, basically.
Awesome. Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, man.
Don't forget, head over to SideQuestFitness.com and pick up your copy of the Training Grounds today for free and begin your fitness quest.